Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Rhonda Studnick Kaiser, and I'm the Director of Customer Engagement for BigFix, and I'll be hosting our BigFix Briefing Room webinar today. We are recording today's webinar. If this presents you with any concerns, please just drop at this time. You'll be able to access a recording of the event about an hour after we conclude. You'll follow the same registration link that you used to get here to get to the event. And you can also share your link with colleagues who may not have been able to join us. They'll be presented with a brief registration page, and then they can go ahead and click through and access the recording. We do encourage you to ask questions throughout the course of the event. Just add your questions to the chat box, and we'll answer those as we go along. And with that, let's go ahead and talk about our brief agenda for today and introduce you to my co-presenter, and we'll get going. So yeah, I'm going to introduce you to Joe. We're going to go over the Microsoft security updates. We're going to talk about some Linux kernel security updates. And we have an item today. We always like to bring a little bit of new functionality or maybe overlooked functionality to you. And so we're going to talk about web reports today. This is something that when I was sitting in your shoes as an administrator for BigFix, it was very important to me. I spent so much time in web reports, and this feature is super cool. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide. So as mentioned, I am the Director of Customer Engagement. I work across our product management, support, professional services team, work with Joe on a regular basis. As you know below, Joe has been involved with a lot of our larger customers with large environments, and I was actually his customer once upon a time. So Joe Saylor is part of our BigFix AVP organization. He's an advisory architect, and he works, as mentioned, with a lot of our key accounts. So and he's avid snowboarder and dirt biker. So today it's snow, but next time it might be a dirt bike. So with that, well, a mountain bike. I don't know, what do you call it, Joe?
Those are definitely mountain bikes.
Yeah.
I like gravity, not so much power.
There you go. All right, well, let's turn it over to you, Joe.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, the small world definitely gets smaller as we do more of this work with BigFix. The same people end up talking to each other all the time. So it's been great working with you these last forevers.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start off with a quick summary of what happened on Patch Tuesday yesterday for Microsoft products. We have only 49 CVE fixes for this month. That's actually a fairly light number. Only 2 of them were critical this cycle, and there's about 127 distinct updates that were released. That number is fairly normal. These CVEs are typically bundled together into whole operating system updates, and there's just 1 per platform. So that number ends up being the same kind of no matter what. Generally, it affects these patches affect all OSs, so everything from all the way back to Server 2008 up through 2022. Same with our client systems. Generally speaking, the important updates this cycle kind of landed on ODBC, Office. Kerberos authentication actually has a really big one that we'll talk about in a second here. SQL Server, Azure, and .NET. I don't think I have a separate slide for it in here, but the ODBC update doesn't land on critical, but it is a remote control execution exploit that's pretty rare. We don't usually see this in the ODBC driver. It affects the latest, previous to latest version of the ODBC driver. It requires a user to kind of get tricked into connecting to a database, but otherwise doesn't have any further requirements. So any sort of DNS change can kind of trigger that one. So that's one important one to look out for this month.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Do know that you can, if you do still have your lingering Windows 2008 or 2012 or some of the older operating systems, you can arrange with Microsoft to get extended support. And we are still publishing content for those OSs, along with a handful of Red Hat OSs as well in that extended support space. So that is something that if you have that need, you can certainly talk with us or with your technical advisor for your account, and they can certainly help you out with that if you need that help.
Yeah, we have all the content We are the Arby's of patch content.
Yes.
Oh, wait, do I need to license that? We have the patches? I don't know. I
Probably.
might get a call from a lawyer. Okay, so yeah, moving on here. I feel like I'm in an alternate dimension this month. There are zero-day exploits. That hasn't happened in forever. How long, Rhonda? When did we figure out the last time this
Well,
happened?
they said that this is the lightest patch Tuesday in 3 years. I didn't actually come up with a specific time that we didn't have a 0-day exploit, but suffice it to say, it's been long enough that neither of us can remember, and we've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, I feel like this life isn't real. I don't know where I am, but it's not on Earth. It's
We're probably
probably,
tempting fate there, right?
yeah, yeah, no, I shouldn't say anything. It's probably more rationally explained by the holidays. Like even malicious hackers have to like take a day off every now and then. And what better time than the New Year's? Which, by the way, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas. A little late, but still appropriate, I think.
Yeah,
So this is our gift for the year. You get no 0 days.
I like it.
That isn't to say that we can just kind of take a break for a month from updating OSs and other Microsoft products. There are a couple of pretty big ones that are not currently actively exploited, but look quite bad to me. The Kerberos vulnerability that I mentioned earlier is like I would even call it a step past an escalation of privileges attack. It allows an attacker already inside the network. It requires a machine in the middle, which also requires some additional bars to be cleared in terms of like spoofing an IP address or otherwise tricking a system into talking to this malicious actor inside your network. So it's not, an automatic failure of everything. But in that case, this allows an attacker to impersonate anything that it can get to talk to this box. So we bypass Kerberos altogether and can kind of pivot into, anything that has an open account.
It's good that you have to, I mean, I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's good that you have to be on the network to take advantage of this, but nonetheless, be safe, get patched.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think we kind of gloss over in this space a lot is like what a machine in the middle attack really means. It has just a super wide definition, like even, a phishing attack could be called a machine in the middle attack. So, if you have to trick a user into connecting to some malicious server, that malicious server that, steals their credentials and then goes and does something else with them, like that's still a machine in the middle attack. And this is like a little more insidious than that layer. This doesn't actually require a user to kind of be aware of it all or even to really get tricked. So the user interactivity on this one is zero,
Right.
and so there's just much less defense against it, which I think is why it rose into the high critical severity rate.
Yeah.
All right, and then the other critical that is a little more complex to execute is in the Hyper-V server. It's just a remote code execution vulnerability. So an attacker that's on your network and adjacent to the Hyper-V host, which presumably any modern secure enterprise will not have that very open, right? Your hosts probably are fairly closed off, so the attack surface is low to begin with. And then the attacker also has to win a race condition against that server. So there's the additional bar to clear there. But it does allow, arbitrary remote code execution. So the Hyper-V update in particular is pretty high priority this month.
All right.
One of the other interesting vulnerabilities that was closed this month is Office's ability to import FBX files, which are things that you might get out of any sort of computer-aided design software. They're basically 3D models. So the act of importing that into Office has been found to allow remote code execution. So a malicious FBX file imported into like a PowerPoint presentation or Word or whatever can just execute whatever it wants. So this update doesn't really fix the vulnerability. It just completely disables the ability for FBX files to be imported into documents. This is one of those things where, you know, there's a dividing line in security where you still need the information to be accessible, you still need it to be useful, but it also needs to be secure. And this is one of those things that just kind of crosses it a little too far. And so we completely lose functionality because of the need for security, even though, you know, normally we would expect to want to keep functionality at all costs. Sorry, not at all costs, at most costs.
At a reasonable level of cost.
Reasonable level of risk, yes. There
right,
we go.
right, yes, yeah.
So yeah, this just falls on that other side of the security dichotomy where it just has to go away.
Yeah, hopefully they'll find a fix that allows this again at some later date, right? But for now, it's just going away.
Yeah, and you know, one further note: currently imported stuff that's already exists in like a PowerPoint or a Word document will continue to display unless it's like linked directly to an FBX file. It's the actual act of the import that has the vulnerability, not necessarily viewing the file. So any existing 3D documents aren't currently a risk.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Yeah, so we don't have to throw away, you know, 10% of all documents ever created. I appreciate that part of the security half here.
Yes, I agree.
All right, and that's kind of all the news for Microsoft this month. Again, very light. I feel like I'm in a bit of an alternate dimension, but it's okay. I accept the light load this time. So moving on to some Linux kernel security trends here. For the most part, there haven't really been like anything too scary in the Linux world. There are, as you can see on screen, I've kind of cherry picked everything over 7 for this last month in terms of severity rating. And if you are just like a really aggressive speed reader, you probably already noticed that all of this already requires a user to have local console access. And so, you know, to me, these don't seem particularly scary. It's mostly escalation of privileges for someone who can already get into your Linux box. So, you know, not great, nothing that keeps me up at night here. But of course, as Rhonda mentioned earlier, patch your systems. Just, you know, better safe than sorry. I don't think we've lost any sort of functionality in Linux with any of these updates. You know, it's not like the FBX filters where we have to sacrifice something good to get some protection. It's, you know, nothing of that nature here.
All right. CISA KEV, the gift that keeps on giving.
Everyone's favorite. For those of you, for the 3 of you left out there that are unaware of what CISA KEV is, this is the known exploited vulnerabilities list from the US government. These are things that the government has proof of that we have that are vulnerable and there are exploits out in the wild and need to be patched. You know, they have recommendations for when this stuff needs to be patched by, which kind of gives you a clue as to their general severity. Some of them will, you know, known exploited vulnerability. Some of them have patch by dates of like 6 months from now, so you can kind of guess that that's not as scary. Most of these, especially the ones marked in red here, are for pretty wide-reaching applications or devices, and they generally have patch by dates of like the end of this month, which is quite aggressive for KEV. You know, meaning that you can expect that these are things that you really want to update.
Yeah, I noticed that D-Link item is a 2016 vulnerability. If you look at that CVE number, 2016, 2017, or 2017. So, you know, it's not just the newest, latest, and greatest stuff that's landing on the CISA KEV list. It is stuff that, hopefully you've already patched for, so you don't have to worry about it, but now it's being exploited. So that cyber hygiene is really important in this case.
Yeah, and specifically the delinquent is for physical devices, and it actually applies to stuff newer than 2016. The original CVE was originally posted in 2016, so it's fairly new stuff. The delinquent to me is quite scary. It doesn't require any sort of user interaction. If your devices are on a older version of the firmware than is specified, which I did not write down here like a moron, then if an attacker can see that router, if they're within a network hops of it that isn't completely blocked, they can just do whatever they want to your dealing devices, which is obviously a terrible, terrible thing. So anybody here that may have dealing devices in their environment, please take a look at them. These are notoriously difficult to kind of report on, especially from the BigFix point of view, where we can't put an agent on a D-Link router. Like, that's not something we can really do. So reporting can be tricky, and just being aware where these devices are is something that takes active work.
Okay.
The other two big ones are for Apple devices. There's a remote code execution vulnerability in everything. This one's a little bit older. Hopefully you have already done this update. This was the December 11th release, I think, if I'm remembering the date right. Any Apple devices like your iPhone that connect to a maliciously crafted web page can just be instantly owned. So kind of an early vulnerability. Still requires users to click on something. So it's not as simple as just having your device on the network and it gets destroyed, but still pretty big one there.
Yeah, it seems like I'm checking. I proactively, of course, I work in a security adjacent field, and so I'm very cognizant of it. Our home is an info security safe space, but nonetheless, I check at least weekly to see if there's something new from Apple on all of our Apple devices. So yeah, this definitely crosses not just from work; it also crosses into your home if you're an Apple home. So make sure that you're looking at those things as well.
Yeah, and then last on the most important of these lists is Adobe Cold Fusion. This one kind of snuck in. It was posted really like right in the holiday weeks, so it probably would have been pretty easy to miss. It's a remote code execution vulnerability, as the rest of these were, and it doesn't really require user interaction. So this is another important one to get updated right away. And I guess just to plug our products, since that's a thing we do sometimes, we do have the CISA KEV content pack and BigFix. Talk to your seller. It's available. It's just a huge pile of content that detects all of these things that are detectable. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to do like one, but
yeah, and we do have now, we're up to about 60% of that extended content pack also has remediations. So we started out where we were kind of heavy in that extended content pack on just finding things, and now we're also trying to fix those, which is of course what BigFix is. BigFix. So we are adding new features and new remediations on a regular basis, and the amount of those items that BigFix can, as Joe said, detect, we can also remediate, and so we're working really hard to get you even more content and capabilities in that space.
Thanks for the detail there, Rhonda. Okay, so that's kind of the security news for the month. As I said, very light, pretty much everywhere. Only a few really big things to take a look at. And so I kind of wanted to use the rest of this time to talk about a security adjacent thing. Web reports, reporting in general for security is obviously very important. You can't know what you need to fix if you don't know what's vulnerable. And Web Reports is obviously older. It's not our newest interface here, but still very powerful and has some things that I think get easily overlooked. Both of these items here, I've talked to, fairly seasoned BigFix veterans, in the like 3 to 4 year range that just kind of weren't aware of what these things did because they're not obvious in the interface. So the first is aggregate reporting. In Web Reports, it does quite a bit of power hidden behind just like a tiny checkbox called hide individual computers. It looks like it doesn't do anything at first when you click on it, but then as you like do very specific things to narrow down your data set, suddenly it gets way more useful. So we're gonna look at that in just a moment. And then similarly in Web Reports, as any of you that use BigFix for any length of time know, it is more of a point-in-time tool. We're very, very, very good at telling you what goes on in your environment right this second, and not quite as good at telling you what happened in your environment 3 days ago, 5 days ago, 10 days ago. And so there's some, not hidden, but maybe not obvious things in Web Reports that allow you to get that point in time, that historical point in time view that you can't usually get through the BigFix platform.
And I bet you're going to show us, right?
And now, let's see if everything goes wrong with a live demo here, as things are wont to do. Rhonda, can you see a Web Reports share right now?
I can, yes. Yes, I can.
And I'm going to refresh it and hope that my authentication isn't dead. Oh, lovely. Okay, looks like this might actually work. As anyone who's done a live demo knows, there's like a 98% chance that the stuff will crash immediately. Doesn't matter how many times it's worked beforehand. So I'm shocked. This is a Christmas present to me. Okay, so standard Web Reports interface here. Nothing special. I haven't applied any filters or anything. For aggregate reporting, the thing that is tricky is under Edit Columns. There is a Hide Individual Computers button all the way at the bottom. I think a lot of people maybe see this at first, maybe click it once, and when you do, it does exactly what it says. This computers column is gone. It's now account column, but that's not useful in this default report. So I think a lot of people kind of just end here. Like they see this and they're like, geez, why is this a thing? Do I need to obfuscate computer names? Not super obvious. The power and the interesting bit of this comes in when you start narrowing down your data set to when there are duplicate results. Anybody familiar with relevance may be aware of the multiplicity inspectors, and that's basically what this ends up doing. So once we have narrowed this down a bit, so like last report time, we definitely got to get rid of, because that's always unique. A last report time is going to be basically different for almost every client in your environment. So just with that, now suddenly this data gets a little more interesting. We have counts here for that aren't just one, I guess, to begin with. And now you can kind of see what the multiplicity is of each of your unique rows. So it just collapses all of the rows that are unique down to just a count of that row type. So this bottom row, I have 7 computers with the IP address of 10.0.64 on this specific OS version with this specific CPU. And of course, my lab is tiny and terrible, and these are actually like straight duplicate systems. Just to kind of give you I did that just to give you a better view of what happens to your accounts here. Sorry, it's not real data. Best I could do. So why do you care about this? There's a lot of different use cases that this in particular opens up. The easiest thing in BigFix to do is to get a count of one specific column. Like even in Web Reports, if you make a chart, you can get counts and a visualization of one specific property. The thing this opens up is combinations of properties. So, we could, let's see, I can find out how many systems are on specific relays that are, let's see, of a specific OS. Let's do that. And then of course, just like every other web reports default Explore Computers report, you can sort this any which way, shuffle columns around, just make the report more yours. So in this way, I could say, I have 6 computers that are on Fedora 35 that are on this specific relay. Maybe you have a very volatile network topology, and you need to make sure that certain OSs are not moving to certain relays. This will allow you to just give you just like a quick count, rather than outputting 400,000 or 200,000 systems individually line by line and then post-processing those. You have like a compact data form here that gives you your whole view at a glance.
Yeah, we use this a lot for like patch reporting, to see those kinds of things, or like relays. We used it a lot for like OS counts or location counts. How many endpoints are in a particular location around the globe. Helps you at least understand where you might maybe need more relays, or maybe you need, things aren't reporting correctly, and that you don't have 10,000 people in Azerbaijan, that might point to other data, integrity issues that you might have. So certainly something that was magic when I'm pretty sure you're the one who taught me how to do this. When I learned how to do this, it was something that really helped me out a lot in management reporting, and then just the use of understanding where things were in the world of compute, and working with other other constituents in your organization. Maybe you're working with your network teams, maybe you're working with other security teams, maybe there's a threat to a specific group of devices or a particular user kind of profile. Maybe your engineers are going to have problems, but your office workers aren't. That kind of thing. This is really helpful in all of those cases.
Yeah, combining like geography with any other column is just in general a great use case for this. To tie it back into the security context. One thing we did like back in the Log4j days, once we had the ability to detect Log4j, is we could throw whether a system is relevant to Log4j into a property, and then using this count functionality, you can say, okay, I have in one geo in one specific state or one specific data center or physical building, I have this many systems that are still vulnerable to Log4j. And then you can kind of slice and dice it in any way that's useful to you, say server versus client boxes. You can get all those into a single report this way.
Yeah, for Log4j, you could then look at like your DMZ, your externally facing devices versus your internal devices, right, that are somewhat shielded. So that's another great use case.
Yeah, that's a good location split. I like that one. Okay, so yeah, I mean that's just that's aggregate reporting kind of in a nutshell, and the ways we use it. To tie this into, did I save a report? I think I did. Okay, so to tie this into the historical reporting side of it, I should have had a separate window open. Now I do not remember. Yeah, there we go. I was kidding. I knew I named it something relatively reasonable. All right, so this is the report I had was sort of just looking at, but it's a saved report now. One other interesting thing you can do in web reports that, again, gets really overlooked is you can save this stuff as CSV, right? You can have it emailed around. That's very common. It's like the first thing we show everyone is how to email a report to yourself, to your boss, to your CISO, whoever. And that, of course, you can do with this. It does require that a human look at that email, right? Like generally speaking, emails aren't really machine readable. They're not super convenient to, look at a specific day that you wanted this data from. So enter scheduling reports as archives rather than as emails. So if we head back to the report list, you can see I've already scheduled this, but by default this would be no. Reports just aren't scheduled when you save them. And I also had this run about 20 times this morning to show you the data. We will get to that in a moment. Okay, so here's the schedule report interface. Hopefully most of you have seen this at least a little bit. I won't go over most of it. In this case, I've told my report to generate every 15 minutes. So this will just fire a brand new version of the report we just looked at every 15 minutes, but like sequentially. So if you have like a ton of reports running at the same time, sometimes these do not happen exactly at their interval. So, don't panic if it's a little late. And then in the activity actions, the key here is to use archive. This doesn't send it out anywhere. It runs the report, on whatever your schedule is, but then just stores it in the file system. The thing that's a little sneaky about this is you notice we don't really tell you where that goes or what it's going to look like when it gets there, or even how to find it. So in this case, I've just have it set to, archive the last 20 entries. You may want to set it to a maximum number of megabytes. You may want to set it to a maximum number of days, depending on your use case. All of these are valid. The only thing that can get kind of scary with this functionality is it's certainly possible in BigFix to have very, very large properties. Like for instance, the installed applications property is enormous, right? There's like, 10 kilobytes worth of data in that single property per computer. You throw a ton of these onto a disk, you can start to fill things up really quickly. So just make sure that you don't overfill your disk. That's where things can be a problem with this strategy.
Right. So if you archive, limit your archives. Rule number one.
Yes, please. And maybe don't limit them to 7,000 days. That's not the reasonable number you're looking for.
Right.
But still, solve your use case, right? Like don't be shy about using disk if that's what you need. Okay, so now we have this set to keep 20 entries, run every 15 minutes. The key part to finding this data is, one, you need access to your root server's file system, which can be a hurdle, depending on the size of your environment and your general security requirements. And the other bit is this ID number. The ID of the schedule is how you find it in the file system. So we're at 1007 here, 1007. And I don't have any other reports just to make it clean so this isn't ugly. Yours web reports instance will definitely be dirtier than this. So, it will take some looking and some, maybe some screenshotting. Make sure you have all your data. And then this goes to, hopefully, this
we
just
can see
worked.
the file. Yep.
File Explorer.
Yep.
I was kind of panicking that the RDP session wouldn't happen here. Okay, so let's go back up a few folder levels here. This ends up in the BigFix server folder on your web reports server. So, this is just the default location, C program files, BigFix Enterprise. This path will almost certainly be different for your environment. The thing that is definitely going to be the same starts in the Bez server directory here, into Bez reports data, and then into archive data. One of the things that gets a little confusing here is that there's actually two spots it goes to for every report. You'll notice I have a last run reports folder and a 1007 folder. This is where all of the historical ones go, the 1007 folder. Last run reports is where you can get just the latest one. So oftentimes, one of the main use cases for this is in using like machines to read this. So if you need to feed another system, or if you just want to have some alert go out, based on data deltas or whatever, you can use just this last one to connect to, and the name will always be the same. So it's very easy to get to, right? So it's always going to be in last run reports. It will always be 1007.dat. Let's see, and if we open this up, if I had set a application, there we go. You'll notice it's just a very plain CSV text file. So this is just super easy to generate. It doesn't really require any sort of knowledge. It's a great way to get at least reasonable amounts of data out to other applications, because it just, took me 5 clicks to generate this and create a schedule so that it will just keep generating it. So as far as automation goes, it doesn't require any skills with SQL. It doesn't require any skills with file format creation or anything like that. It's just pure BigFix, pure interface, and we get this nice automated flat CSV file.
Awesome.
And it does preserve the column ordering and column sorting. You'll note I had this sorted by server name, I think, relay name. And so our counts are not in order. So you can see that it kind of preserved, exactly what the original report looked like in Web Reports. And then one other slightly weird thing about how these get stored, in my 1007 folder here for the schedule ID, you'll notice there's a bunch of subfolders. These are all just the Unix timestamp of when the report was run. So whenever Web Reports decided to trigger the schedule, that's just how this gets named. So it's not super predictable. And inside each of these is just an archive CSV file that looks exactly like the other 1007.dat file from the last run reports folder.
So if you were real talented, you could like port those files into some other place where then you could like munge the data together and be able to look at your historical data over time, if you were real smart like that.
Yeah, and in general, it gives you the ability to have historical data. It doesn't necessarily need to be using this aggregate reporting. Aggregate reporting is really handy to condense your data. So, I mentioned that data sizing was kind of a big issue with this, because you can easily get yourself in trouble and store terabytes of data, if you're not very careful. But with an aggregate report, this will always be a kilobyte, because you'll always only have, 20, 30 rows in this kind of report. So you're kind of free to be a little more aggressive with your scheduling and aggressive with your storage requirements.
Yeah. Awesome.
So
I think I knew this, but maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think the biggest value here is that it's like a completely brain dead way to generate nice data for just other stuff to consume. Like, that's something we see a lot out in the enterprise world, especially, once you get to the even moderately large environments, I don't know, even the couple of thousand endpoint levels. This is perfect for that, because, you don't necessarily want to take on the complexity and the technical debt of having to deal with SQL queries to pull stuff out of your database, but you still want this data available in an automated fashion. And this is just a great low cost way to make it happen.
Right. So if you have insights and you have someone who's good with Power BI or something like that, then you can certainly use the historical maintenance feature of the native insights capability. But if you don't, or you're not real comfortable with SQL like me, then this is another way. Throw this into a spreadsheet, start doing your aggregation. If that's where your talent lies, this is a great way to pull all of that data together.
All right, and that is all I really wanted to talk about in Web Reports today. Rhonda, I don't know if you've been monitoring the chat. I didn't specifically ask for questions, but wait, do we got anything?
One of our users, one of the folks online says they've got a customized executable batch file that automatically writes the CSV to a Windows shared folder on other servers, and he would be happy to share more info if interested. So maybe that user throw that out there on the forum, and people can look look for that that capability. That's great use case. Thank you. And he says he's going to do that. So look for that on the forum later today or soon.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, copying this stuff out to share that isn't directly on your root server, it makes it way less scary to give people access to it. That's for sure a first step to getting this data out to more than just your admins. So yeah, wonderful addition.
Awesome. All right.
Okay, so let's see. I think we had a couple more slides, but we're on the back 10% here, and I just started it from the beginning. Hold on. Click. Let's go. There we go.
Certifications. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I have to say. There are certifications. You'll have probably seen this. If not, that they exist now. We went 15 years as a platform without certifications, and just in the last couple of years, they've finally come out. We got some new ones. They keep coming out all the time. We now have compliance certification. That one's fairly recent. So, if you want a badge, they're there. They're ready for you.
Yeah, and there's exam guides. I think we've mentioned that in the past. There's exam guides and capabilities there, and always remember that we do have free training for BigFix. So if you want to study up on compliance, you can take a compliance class, and then you can go through the compliance readiness for your exam and then take the exam. So there's definitely a path there for you. I do know that there is in the very near future coming a Platform 11 professional. So we have released BigFix 11. So if you've been sort of dilly-dallying around and haven't quite gotten around to taking your BigFix Platform 10 professional, there is soon to come a BigFix Platform 11 professional. And since these are, things that you do have to pay for, it might make sense to wait just a little bit until the 11 professional capability is released.
That was really poor salesmaning on your part there, Rhonda. You're not supposed to tell people to save money. What are you doing?
Well, you want to have the latest and greatest certifications, and we're here for you. I'm in customer engagement. That means I want you to be successful. So I'm telling you all the good news.
All right,
so on this, yeah, do you want me to talk to this one?
They're yours.
Sure. All right. So upcoming events. So we do have an in-person event. It's actually a shared event with our colleagues in our application security space. So we're going to talk about AppSec, IT infrastructure, and security. So it's BigFix and it's AppScan, and it's in Toronto. So that is live now. If you capture the smaller QR code there, you can sign up for that and attend at the end of the month in Toronto. So that is open and available. It is free, a free event, but certainly looking forward to having people there for that. And then on the 31st, we have an upcoming webinar with our partners at Tenable, where we're talking about vulnerabilities and get awesome at patching and how Tenable and BigFix work together to help you get awesome at patching. So, and we will be having more events coming up, both in person and virtually over the next several months. So the beginning of the year, we're still kind of getting all of the trajectories mapped, and as soon as we have more events set, there'll be more out there. So more to come.
Always look forward to new events.
Yes, and this is our long-term success with BigFix page. It's under resources. on bigfix.com if you don't want to grab the QR code. It is a safe QR code. I will tell you that there's no quishing involved in our QR codes in our presentations today. But this is a place that I go all the time because I can never remember where's the YouTube channel, what's my webinars page, user conferences, etc. So this is a great thing to bookmark and find your way to all the cool things. And if there's something here that you wish you had that's not here that you'd like to see be part of this page, you can certainly send me a message via the BigFix forum or via Slack, and I will happily take that under advisement and see what else we can add to this to make it better.
And that's all we got.
And that's all we got. All right. Well, thank you, Joe. Great presentation today. Thank you for bringing that awesome web reports information for our customers today. And thank you to all of you guys for joining us. As mentioned, the recording of this event will be available in about an hour. Just follow that registration link or join link. We are also probably, actually, I know we will be posting this to our BigFix Tech Advisor YouTube channel in the next week or so. So you can also reach it out there. And yeah, and we'll hopefully see you at the end of the month in the Tenable webinar and future webinars to come. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day, guys.
Right. Bye, all.